Sellers are continuing to press the issue here, pushing the buyers back to defending the October demand yet again. That being said, as of right now, the sellers have yet to negate the change that was created from the reaction to the election from November 6th because that gap remains unfilled. So, are buyers down and out if the October structure is affirmed as supply, and how much selling is too much? My name is Lamont. I've been a full-time trader for going on 8 years now, or 8 years now. Part of the Chart Guys team for more than half of that. We're ahead of our futures room and our swing report. And in this video, we will answer those questions and more. So let's get into it. All right. So starting off with SPY here. So the key points that we should be monitoring going forward is one, the all-time high supply. Of course, as long as the all-time high supply is in play and there's not acceptance under it, well, then these sellers are playing solid defense where they need to, right? So this rejection, very clean rejection from this area of supply. They see follow through under this area of supply sitting right under it. And, actually, I didn't mention in the last video, that was just a tweet. But this bounce is notable, right? So the initial bounce out of this October structure, it makes it all the way back up to the all-time high supply. The next bounce out of the October structure does not make it to even test the lows of the all-time high supply. Instead, it's just a pop and drop over here at the value area high of this supply sitting under the all-time high. And now this lower low has allowed the sellers as much advance as they have been able to achieve throughout all of this trading ever since the election reaction on November 6th. So this was obviously a very notable change. The market reacted positively to the results of the election. And all of this price action is essentially, from the seller's perspective, is trying to negate this change, right? The goal for the sellers is, of course, always to negate buyers. The goal for the buyers is, of course, always to negate sellers, right? Buyers want to go to infinity, sellers want to go to zero, right? And on the way up to infinity, we have to deal with supply. On the way down to zero, we have to deal with demand. So this change, again, not yet negated unless they can fill this gap down to 576.74. So there's actually still a ways to go. So these lower lows lacking follow through, it's notable, right? Because it's essentially the buyers are playing defense, not allowing the sellers to. That's weird. Not allowing sellers to just run away with it here. Okay. So now there's a lot of space for a potential daily lower high under 599.70. Anything under that's going to be good for a daily lower high. And really, what I care about the most next week is, can these buyers get back over 582.46, right? Because, again, this is the key structure that we've been watching for a very long time now, right? This October structure over here is sitting on top of a much larger area of demand. On the weekly time frame, this looks like more or less sideways. And so we care about this guy a lot, because as long as holding over this guy, this weekly retracement is going to remain healthy. We're technically still looking for a weekly higher low. This low over here was never really established as a weekly higher low, because we didn't break out, right? So now this is a bit of an anomaly as well, right? Where this lower high and this low is essentially the same candle right now. So we definitely don't want to assume this low is set simply because the prior week's high was broken, and we don't want to assume that this high is set simply because the prior week's broken. So it's essentially an outside bar, right? So expanding range right now this week, not very clear in my opinion, but I would say, as of right now, it's still reasonable in my opinion to be sticking with the buyers, right? Because even if we do fill this gap here, even if we do trade through this October structure, affirm it as supply, this is a much more major high over here, right? This high over here that was established in July, it was in play as resistance for quite a long time. And then finally, once you break back over it, you hold that clean back test over it, market affirms its significance twice, and then it's off to the races for a bit. So if we just zoom out and then we look at this July high over here, that's this guy, right? So this breakout, all right, from back in September, not negated without back under here. It's the same exact logic, right, as the daily time frame. We're saying, okay, well, this breakout's not negated without filling the gap. It's the same dealio, right? If this guy is supportive, then this breakout is not yet negated. And that's essentially a breakout on the monthly time frame, I believe. Yes, so that's this high over here, the July high over here. And technically, we pull back for a rinky-dink monthly higher low and then break out to a new high. It's not, it's a very, very small pullback over here relative to this prior high, but it is still technically you know, that key level, that breakout level. So that's really what I care about. And I think if we were to get daily oversold conditions down there, I would be shocked if we didn't see some kind of relief bounce. And I personally would be interested in playing for some relief bounce if we do happen to get down there in daily oversold conditions. There's a lot more volume trade at 571.35. So that's really it for SPY. That's really all that I care about. If next week we lower low and then fail to touch down 576.74 again, so if we lower low and these sellers again fail to fill the gap, and then you find acceptance back over 582.46, we're probably looking for a more sideways trade, right? Under this supply, over this demand. So again, for the last 3 weeks or so, there really hasn't been much change. We're just trading under this guy, over this guy. Okay, so that is pretty much it. And whenever there's like meaningful daily overhead supply, and whenever we lose an area of demand, so that's, to me, that's essentially like a trend change, right? Like what Dan would say, like a lower high and lower low. For me, I need to see supply and then lose demand. They're very similar. Oftentimes they end up being the same on different time frame, but not always. Anyway, so that's really it. I'm sorry. My point was that once there is supply and a breakdown from demand, I tend to focus more on like daily oversold conditions. Typically, when you have again, the last time that happened was back here, and I think we did get daily oversold over here. Trading views being very slow, so I don't think that's the general trend. Maybe it is. All right, I guess it's my internet connection right now, kind of slow, so just bear with me here. Okay, so we definitely would have daily oversold conditions if we were to revisit this July high, and this is what I was talking about. So once you have this supply, once you lose the demand, I care a lot less about hourly oversold plays, and I care more about daily oversold plays. These are the kind of pullbacks where you're looking for hourly oversold, right? Just these small little pullbacks, backtest local daily demand. That's when you want to play hourly oversold. Once you have supply and breakdown from demand, then, you know, I prefer to be a bit more cautious as a buyer. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the SPY. Moving on to the Qs here. All right, so for QQQ, lots of space for daily lower high under 527.92. Anything under that's going to be good for another one. This is a very notable miss. So to get so close to the July 2024 high over here and then just barely miss it, the low of Friday, essentially made off of the value area low of this November 21st to 29 structure here. And we've been watching this guy in conjunction with this guy. This fella, we probably should care about more than this guy. Why? Because this guy is sitting right on top of this high. So essentially, this is kind of a proxy or a mini boss into this structure. If you don't trade through this structure, then obviously you don't get to this July 2024 structure. If you don't get to the July 2024 structure, then just like with a SPY, this breakout's not yet negated. If this breakout's not yet negated, then again, in the monthly time frame, these guys are looking just fine, right? This is a monthly breakout over the July 2024 high. Okay, so that is really it. Oh yeah, let's see here. We got some. So this guy is still in play, came into the trade zone, got to the target, came into the trade zone, bounced, and barely, came just shy of the target, bit of a red flag. I still think this is a pretty reasonable trade zone. Like, this is where you want to be playing if you're looking to get a position off the back test of this July 2024 high. Pretty reasonable. Again, I would prefer daily oversold conditions. So if we can get daily oversold and come test wherever the next area of high volume down here is, which I guess would be this guy. 496.29. I would prefer like daily oversold conditions here or daily oversold conditions here. Of course, that would mean that we're playing under this July 2024 high. And so if we do take trade down here, something like this, right, ideally in daily oversold conditions, then we'll look to exit. We'll look to exit it. Any initiations like here, a partial here. And then we'll throw our stop under the low. It's not better than 2R, so you got to know your hit rate. And obviously I never really use these zones blindly, right? Like, I will set this up as a general framework, and then I'll refine the entry throughout the week. As you've seen, in like the publicly shared examples or whatever. So anyway, that's or I mean, if you're just a member of our chat room, then you see it every day or most sessions. So anyway, that's pretty much it for the Qs. It's very similar to the SPY in my opinion, where we want to be waiting for some daily oversold conditions, I would say. I mean, I would prefer waiting for daily, you don't have to, but more aggressive operators are still using this structure. I think that's still pretty reasonable. And that's it. So again, this is like a very notable failure, but the buyers still need to affirm it, right? Like just like with SPY the other week or so when they had this bounce over here. Okay, that was a very notable bounce. We could have set a daily high or low, but they needed to affirm that bounce. We talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago, right? And so opening up under where that bounce was obviously was not affirming that. So it's the same deal for QQQ next week. This is a very notable failure for now, but it needs to be affirmed, right? So we need to open ideally over this candle's wick, right, where the bounce occurred in order to continue to affirm the bounce, and then just make our way back over 509.83, which is the low of this structure over here, and then again 513.24 is really the key level for this guy, right? Because if we hold over this guy, then it's right back to expecting price action like this. Affirming this guy is not the best case scenario, right? Obviously, it would be better if we were holding over 521.74, but you know, basically you just want to say, all right, well, how once you start losing areas of demand, the question then becomes, all right, well, can they regain them? All right, so right now the sellers are trying to flip this structure into supply, right? We so far up until Friday, they didn't really get much acceptance under this 11.7 to 14 structure, right? So as of right now, this is the most acceptance under the 11.7 to 14 structure so far, but we have not found acceptance under the point of control of this 11.21 to 29 structure. So then now it becomes, all right, well, can these buyers get back to this guy? If they can get back to over here, okay, then we should expect more price action like this. If they can get back over this guy, then we should expect price action like this. Affirming this guy as demand would keep these buyers positioned well for a go at new highs. Okay, so we just essentially always take it one step at a time, right? If we've lost this, we have to regain this. It's like a military campaign, right? If you lose a fortification, like so areas of demand are fortifications left behind by buyers, right? They fortify an area, they want to hold that ground or whatever, and then the sellers come in, they take that fortification out, they try to advance, and now they try to take this guy out. They're not so successful throughout over here. Finally, they are seeing some success over here. Now they're trying to take this guy out. So what do the buyers have to do? They have to regain their footing. That's it, right? It's very straightforward, way to call the market exactly for what it is, which is absolutely key for setting up objective trades repeatedly over and over again, right? You have to call things for what they are first before you can create any kind of potential change, right? It's kind of like it's like addiction, right? What do they say? First, you got to acknowledge, right, that you have an addiction, right? You have to call it for what it is before you can start working on that issue, that challenge, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so anyway, that's pretty much it for the Qs here. Moving on to IWM. And so for IWM, this is very notable. This is a super notable breakdown. Not only are they confirming or affirming this bear flag dealio, I don't really love it as a bear flag, but either way, it was a dead cat bounce kind of a situation, weak bounce. Breakdown, and this gap down on Friday is very notable because it's a gap down that remains unfilled. So these buyers were trying to fill the gap with an opening drive higher, do not fill the gap, which means and they also failed to get to 219.14, which is the point of control of this key demand zone. So now this guy is being affirmed as supply as long as we're holding under 219.14. Again, that being said, it is a notable failure not to come down to 214.60, but again, it's all about what happens on Monday, right? Does this little end of the day bounce get affirmed? Can we find acceptance over the bounce? If not, and we lower low, hold under Friday's point of control, then these sellers should be trying to get down to 214.60. That should be their next objective. Just like this was the objective for the buyers, the high of this range at 227.17. This is the objective for the sellers. Okay. So that's pretty much it. I think this is a stop out, right? For the trade zone. No, that one was good. Yeah, so this one is now stopped out, right? This one we set up back here. It was good over here, and then it floundered over here. Is what it is. I actually didn't use this at all. I was looking for sells, which I'll cover in the end of the video. Okay, so that's pretty much it for IWM. All about 219.14 next week or 214.60. Okay. Moving on to the Dow. So the Dow also hanging out in this trade zone of old here. Gave you some opportunity to take some your partials out to be risk free if you use this trade zone as well. Like I don't love this price action right now relative to this trade zone. It's a daily lower high, lower low. We've broken down from this area, so it's affirming it as supply right now, right? So you had supply, breakdown, supply. As long as we're holding under 421.59, well then obviously this is supply as well. So I don't love it. Personally, I would probably, if you're a Dow operator, you're looking for a buy, like for a potential monthly higher low, which is currently what's in play right now, anything over 384.93 being good for one. I would, again, just wait for daily oversold conditions, and then we'll zoom out here and see, okay, well, where is there more volume traded? Let's give a second here. And if not here, then I guess here would be next. Let me just zoom out some more here. I would prefer down here. There's a lot more value established here, a lot more volume traded here, but things would be pretty beaten up if we were to get to that point. I honestly prefer it though. Like I don't really love how little volume is traded here. So if anything, it would be something like this. Like we're waiting for daily oversold conditions. It's kind of aggressive like that. It's pretty big. Hang on. I forget these indices don't really have large, like, you know, volatility. Something like this, I think, is pretty reasonable. We should only be trying to get back here first, honestly. So something like this, I think it would have to be like this, like bottom fishing off of the lows of this range here. Something like this, I think is pretty reasonable. Assuming this guy, you know, assuming this trade gets invalidated, this zone gets invalidated. Okay, so that's pretty much these sellers are totally confident right now, right? As long as you're creating supply, breakdown, then these sellers really have nothing to worry about right now. So the new daily no change level is over here. These buyers don't negate the change of this breakdown without acceptance back over 421.59. And we can mark this up as well as an area of sideways that we can now be monitoring. We can care about this guy a little bit less. I'll just hide it for now. Or whatever, I'll just kill it for now. Oh, you know what? I'll just steal it. Oops. Also memory. Okay, so as long as these buyers can't get back over 426.45, this structure continues to be affirmed as supply, and then these sellers are very confident on the daily time frame. Okay, so if you're a seller, I think it's reasonable to be looking for something like this. Right, looking for a bit of a backtest play. Oops, that's too high. Something like this. And you are trying to get back down to the next area of high volume, the point of control of this structure over here, which is pretty much the gateway into a larger zone over here. Okay, so sells, you're looking for it over here for a potential lower high or higher high legs follow through. For a buyer, you're looking for daily oversold a little bit deeper. In my opinion, that's how I would go about it at least. Moving on to the dollar here. So the dollar dipped into the trade zone that was shared last week. So dollar buyers continuing to be just fine. Again, why do we establish this as the trade zone? Because as long as you're holding over backtests of local demand, especially if you're holding over the backtest of this larger area of demand, which is also essentially this structure is trying to resolve this guy. So you have a confluence here of meaningful structure. So that's why we establish a trade zone as such. Dipped into the trade zone. It's already at our target at this point. I would pull any bids lower. And then for your any remaining position, just walk your stop up to like under no later than this low here, because as long as this local area of demand is being affirmed, then this trade makes sense. This trade zone still makes sense. So that's pretty much it. This is the furthest these buyers have gone in the dollar ever since November of 2022. So this is certainly very notable. And honestly, I still think this is a pretty reasonable trade zone. Like if you higher high here and you don't see follow through, looking for like hourly oversold conditions into this area, it remains a very reasonable trade zone in my opinion. And that's pretty much it. If you're still in from here, obviously you're sitting pretty. Your stop can be under here as well. Okay, bit more conservative stop can be here. Space for a daily higher low, anything over 107.575 will be good for one. And that's really it. So moving on to NVDA here. So NVDA, this is pretty notable to me. The fact that, you know, you had a big old gap into, not a big gap, but a gap into all-time high and got straight up stuffed. So, you know, things are changing, right? Like pretty much every other, not every other, but pretty much whenever NVDA comes out with some kind of like positive news, you haven't really seen a day like this, right? Where it just completely reverses on you. So, I mean, you have big selling days, but this is not a situation where there was a lot of optimism to set it up and then that optimism gets completely wiped. So, this is now a higher high that didn't see fall through or look above and fail. These sellers should be trying to come back down here. Again, for like more aggressive operators, shorter term operators, I still maintain this is a very reasonable area to be looking for bounces. It already worked out okay here. I know it only barely dipped into our trade zone, but it's still good location, right? So I think it's reasonable, but again, I'm personally much more interested in like daily oversold plays, weekly oversold plays, as things just seem a little bit frothy to me, or they seem like we're taking some froth off is a better way of looking at it right now. So that's pretty much it. Like a lot of that sentiment for me, at least, is like getting stopped out of trades that have been on for some time. Typically, when that starts to happen, it's like it's indicative that like the market environment is changing. So I'm being a bit more cautious here, waiting for like daily oversold conditions, whatever, waiting for a bigger picture location, etc. But that's me. Again, I passed on this too. So if you took this in here, it's a very straightforward setup. This is the kind of setup we do very often. You had extension into the location, you buy that, pass back over it. You didn't have to run it like this. Your risk could have been much closer to like 2%. If using this area in hourly oversold conditions. So that's pretty much it for NVDA. We're just looking at the same old thing, right? Like this is potentially one area of big old balance, very similar to like Microsoft. Microsoft has been trading sideways for a really long time. It was one of the first ones to run up and then start consolidating. So if all of these tech names just start consolidating like this, honestly, that wouldn't really be that big of a deal, especially as long as some of them are still ripping to new highs, which I believe is the case right now. We still have Amazon, still very healthy consolidation, just backtesting daily demand. Meta too looks fine. Google looks fine. Tesla honestly looks fine as well. Netflix doesn't look great, but still just still affirming this breakout into a new all-time high and really not even close to testing where there's more significant daily demand all the way back down here. So that would be fine, honestly, right? Like bigger picture, if NVDA can just continue to trade sideways and all the Fangman T just take their turns trading sideways and then ideally break out of their very large consolidation patterns, I guess we should really be watching Microsoft, right? Microsoft is the first one to really begin this very, very long-term consolidation. And so if these buyers can continue to trade sideways, ideally we see like a lower low here, 384.30 break with no follow through, and then just continue to trade sideways before we break out, that would be a pretty good look. So we shall see. Moving on to Bitcoin here. So for Bitcoin, again, this consolidation remains healthy, right? Like the market has affirmed the significance of this structure so many times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times now. So again, aggressive operators, low time frame, shorter time operators, you guys are just playing right off of this guy. Extension into the location, look for your day trade setups or whatever. Take your risk out of the equation, throw a stop on the local low, and then see if you can get fall through to the other side. I would just literally continue to do that over and over again if you're a shorter term operator. If you're a longer term operator, again, I would prefer to see daily, weekly oversold even. You probably wouldn't be weekly down here, but daily oversold conditions into back testing this guy, I think that would be a very, very, very notable setup here. I guess the internet's still kind of slow for whatever reason here. So yeah, daily OS back here into this major back test. I would love a repeat of this essentially. Okay. That's really it. There's nothing else to talk about for Bitcoin. Space for a daily lower high. Anything under 102.735.99 will be good for one. Got a break under 92209.25 from here. This is Friday though. I'm recording this Saturday morning. In order to set this daily lower high here at 95862.92. Honestly, Bitcoin hasn't really done much in the weekend for a long time, but of course, anything can happen. We'll see. Ethereum. Okay, so moving on to Ethereum here. So Ethereum, this is our aggressive trade zone that we shared, essentially just looking for a backtest of this guy because of holding over this guy, like over here, they should try to come back over here. As I've said many, many times, I would prefer it down here, right? For these crypto trades, I would prefer to see daily oversold, ideally weekly oversold into the backtest of this very large area of demand. This is balanced from August of 2024 all the way into November of 2024. So let's say three months or so of balance, I would much prefer looking for a trade here. We've had this set up forever now. You know, it would have been great if we got it from over here, but market didn't give it to us. So ideally, the market will give it to us now or soon, if we just make another leg lower. Okay, so that's really it. We just continue to monitor the same thing for the Ethereum, which is just this guy, which is our supply, which is rejected price once, twice, 3 times now. And then we're just watching this guy over here, which was supportive over here, and then back test of it is what made all of these lows. So this guy in conjunction with this guy is essentially why we are interested in this location for this trade idea. Okay. CCJ. All right, so for CCJ, as I was saying, you know, in leading up into this point, I wouldn't recycle this guy. This guy already worked once over here. This is potentially a head and shoulders pattern right now, and that's why we set up this sell over here, because as long as this supply sitting at the high to make the potential head is in play, well, then obviously this head and shoulders is on the table. So very notable selling as of right now. Again, I would prefer daily oversold conditions before getting interested in this guy as well, just like everybody else. It's been a while since we have daily oversold. It was way back when over here. So if you give me daily oversold into 44.45, I'm interested in a play here. It's not really high on my priority list, but I would be interested in a play over there. And if we continue to lower low, again, I much prefer it over here, right? Again, CCJ has a propensity to trade sideways for a very long time. And so if this is going to be a look above and fail, they should try to test the lows of the range. I would consider that a gift, especially if we were to get like daily, weekly oversold. Let's use this ice pack. I just having some I don't know. I have no idea. I maybe my hip flexors are like jacked up. I have no idea, but it's not feel good. Anyway, that's pretty much it for CCJ. Space for a daily lower high. Anything under 56.16 will be good for one. And at this point now, you know, I think maybe move this trade zone down a little bit to something like this would be pretty reasonable as well. And we're trying to get back down here. Alrighty. So that's pretty much it. For show and tell, I have I want to show you guys again. You know, I know this is like kind of a theme, right? This is kind of, you know, what I do a lot of. You know, I think it's good. I think it's very helpful, right, to trade the lower time frame and the high time frame stuff, right? So I think I'm most active with my retirement account stuff, like the IRA stuff, the really, really long term stuff, and then the day trading stuff. So the really long term stuff, I like selling credit. Obviously, we just dollar cost average buy when, and you know, buy more when things are weak, and then I like to sell credit around it. But for, you know, day to day or whatever, I think day trading, obviously there's a lot of value there. So just want to shout out the futures gang, particularly Alex, who is a generally pretty quiet guy. I think every now and then he throws some emojis now, but he started sharing his trade ideas January 7th, and that's cool. So just want to give him some props, and also talk about, you know, how we can essentially take our own trade like everybody in the room. You know, we don't always trade the same ideas. We're not trying to follow each other and be an echo chamber. We all trade our own different ideas. And so we traded opposite to each other. So he was a buyer on January 7th at 934. He bought the open and then chopped it up at the value area high. And the value area high was actually where I took the sell at 935. And the reason for that is because on the daily time frame, on the January 7th, that's this day over here. So on January 7th, January 7th is over here. And on January 6th, the prior day, we perfectly rejected, literally to the tick, 227.17 from the high of this structure. So, you know, in the weekend videos, I always let you know what the key levels are. And then for the throughout the week, I'll also do updates, right? So for the morning rundowns, let's see here. Where'd it go here? I guess I have to just bring this over here. So for the January 7th morning, there's a little, every single morning I'll do a quick breakdown. So like just give you a rundown of the key information to set us up for the open. So that's just this video right here. You know, I'll just share the clip of the video regarding this day trade setup. I talk about the logic of it during the pre-market, give you all this relevant information, and then once the trade gets going, again, I will live call out these trades. I sold it, stop over the local high. I tell you where my targets are, blah 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 blah, and so you can review this for yourself if you like. But I'm just gonna walk you through it out, and you can reference these guys, these comments if you like to check my work, so to speak. But essentially on the rut on the next day, so that's over here, right? So think about what's occurring right now, right? The rut on this day, this high is over here, right? And so if the sellers are going to continue to press the issue from here, what do they have to do, right? So again, that's this day over here. The high was tested on the 6th. On the 7th, you open up over here and then test this supply that was left behind from the 6th, the day that we tested the high of the range, right? And so if the sellers are going to press the issue from there and continue to build on this rejection, then they should not allow these buyers to find acceptance back into the supply that was at the high of the 6th, right? And so the value area high over here is a key level, right? Because if these buyers can find acceptance over the value area high, then they're moving value higher from session to session. They are looking good, and thus the sellers are not going to build off of their rejection from that key daily level. So I don't know what's going to happen, but to sell this pass back under the value area high, like if you zoom down into the 1 minute time frame and you look at what that looked like, that was just over here. To sell this little break, I think this is the 1 minute, but I think it was in the 30-second. To sell this break here, it only costs you like 3 points to see whether or not these sellers will continue to press the issue from here. Throw your stop over the local high, and then obviously they got some nice follow through on that. So I ended up swinging this into the next day. Again, all of these exits or whatever are all called out. So this one was just I honestly don't remember. Let's see, the first SS stop looking over the ONH for a chop. Okay, so I don't have the ONH marked up anymore, obviously, because days moves, whatever. So chopped it up at the ONH. And I think, let's see, ONH numbers, looking a bit closer to the end of the day. Took another exit at this end of the day structure here. So that's the prior session. So on this selling, another chop over here. And then we're looking out for another partial outlet at the 913.11.5 daily demand, and then walk the rest. Let's see, 913. Oh, that's this. Okay, so look for another chop over here at the value area high, and then I just walk the stop down for the rest. And then on the, ended up swinging it into the next session, the Wednesday session. The Wednesday session, I chopped it up over here at this point of control. So I talk through all that. I take the rest of this trade out here. If we can get to 913.11.5 POC 219.14 on the ETF chart, and at the time that looked like a crazy good exit, but of course the next day we had a gap down. And so you might be thinking, oh, that's horrible, or whatever. You missed that leg. It's a decent amount of points. But no, I captured it on the live trade Friday morning stream. I guess I can include a link to the morning stream as well, if you like to hear the walkthrough of it all. Although it does play out over like an hour or so. So I talk about the setup in the pre-market, just like on the 7th. I talk through the setup, and then once the open comes, I take an attempt. And there's an initial stop out, and then I have to wait later in the session for another attempt. So that was today or yesterday morning. And it was just, I missed the sell off of the open. I was just doing the live stream, so I distracted myself. And then I made the attempt over here to get with the sellers on the break of this low. Stop over here, over the depot, try to get to the ONL. Stopped it out, that's fine. And then I talked through what I would like to see. I wanted to see the buyers try to fill more gap, and then fail. So fail to get back to the regular trading hours low, and then I would sell a low time frame setup. I use a 30-second SS setup here, stair step setup here, which is just over here, right? So you see this break over the open again. So that's a new high over the open. Fail to get to the regular trading hours low. You sell that, stop over here, chop it up at the ONL, and then at the end of the day, I just closed out the last one because the sellers really weren't advancing so well. And I didn't really want to swing the futures contract into over the weekend, considering how we're already 4 days into selling here, and we failed to get to the next target. I would have taken it all off if we got there. So that is pretty much it. Just want to show you guys that how to use this information to do low time frame stuff. These are technically swing trades, right? Technically, I swung this one from this day into this day. I think it's really good to round out your game. So you have a short-term game because right now it's not a really easy swing trading environment, right? Because what's the market doing? The market right now is kind of just trading sideways. Um, it's not as easy as it was when we were coming up here, right? For the most part, it was, in my opinion, was a lot easier. We haven't really done like this kind of lengthy balance like this in quite some time. So if like we zoom out to the weekly time frame and you look at when's the last time we had like 4 weeks of pretty large range trading sideways, I guess you would say it was back here, all right? So back in August. So that's really it. And honestly, I would like to show y'all. I think let's see on. I think the 7th was a very poppin' day for the futures gang, where there's a lot of folks talking about their trades, and so give you a little sneak peek or whatever into what we get done here, right? So let's see let's see blah 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 blah. Let's see. I could have sworn more people were trading this day, but here we go. So sold NQ, got the 1 hour chop, etc. David, shout out to David, great fella, doing a lot of good work here. Calling out his trades. Storm as well, took a little hiatus and he's back calling out his trade. Healy as well calling out his trades. Yasser, I think, was calling out his trades this day as well somewhere, I believe, unless I remember wrong. Either way, here we go. Sold the yes. So great community. We, especially in the futures room, we're there pretty much every single day. I think everybody there's a full timer or trying to be a full timer. I'm not sure. Either way, if you're interested in joining a community of like-minded traders, super friendly group, very supportive, talk about a lot of stuff besides trading, give us a shot. Links in the description below. I think it's a great place to learn the craft. If you're interested in this ring report, which is just 2 novel ideas sent to your inbox every single week. So it's like 100 ideas out of the year. I trade probably about 10 to 20% of those. And if I do happen to trade that, then I will, obviously provide play-by-plays just like we do in the chat room when we're day trading. And that is pretty much it. So if you made it this far, we would really appreciate like and subscribe. Helps us out a lot, costs you nothing. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for sharing some of your time and energy with me, and I hope to see y'all next week. Farewell. For the rut here, so the rut, very notable, the high of the day right at the 227.17 level. So, again, we're still watching the same thing, right? This structure is being affirmed as demand as long as over 219.14. Got to get over 227.17 in order to have the most confidence in affirming this structure as demand and that you are moving value higher, right, relative to this, or rather higher prices relative to the structure are being accepted, right? Of course, need over 227.17. So that's pretty much it. Bit of an expanding range, session to session perspective. Buyers are actually positioned well to move value higher as long as point of control 2281.3 is supportive. Need acceptance over 2300.5 to actually move value higher session to session. Need to break over the regular trading hour side 2310.1 to press the day plus buy. And day plus buy should have this price trying to come here next. This prior low at 231.88. That's this guy over here. That is really it, I believe. So for the rut, it's a little bit different, right? For the rut, we want to be paying attention to this supply from yesterday, right? So again, we had the high of day right here. We're set to open right under all of this supply left behind from yesterday. And so if you get this immediate rejection from this supply from yesterday, essentially that would be affirming this as resistance. These sellers then should be trying to come here, 223.23. Okay. And that is pretty much it. Overnight inventory for everybody, I believe. Let's check it out. Overnight inventory is balanced for the ES, for the NQ, pretty balanced for the rep. It's also balanced, but probably more net long than the ES and the NQ. All right, so that is pretty much it. I'll see y'all soon in the room.